Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Calzare. I've been playing Conqueror ever since the beta of the game came out, and this is my Conqueror guide. For this video, I partnered up with Shamzel and That One Real Guy, and their YouTube channel links will be in the description down below. This video has timestamps up on the screen or in the description, so if you want to skip to a certain part of the video, you are free to do so. And without any further ado, let's get right into the video. Okay, so the Conqueror is a pretty good character to have in duels because of his defense. His nearly infinite amount of option selects allow you to have an answer for any type of offense that might be thrown at you. And Conqueror's shield bash allow him to also have pretty good offense. Conqueror has a very large health pool, and if you go out of stamina against the Conqueror, you are pretty much dead. He has some weaknesses, however. His stamina pool is pretty low, meaning you're going to have to manage your stamina pretty well with the Conqueror if you want to win. And his damage output is also pretty low, so you're going to have some patience when you play as the Conqueror. Now, let's talk about max punishes with the Conqueror. Okay, so let's talk about the Conqueror's max punishes. On a light parry, you get a top heavy for 33 damage. If you're out of stamina and you get a light parry, you get a light for 13 damage. On a heavy parry, you get a forward bash into a light. On a guard break, you get a side heavy for 25 damage. On an out of stamina guard break, you get a top light. On a wall throw, you get a top heavy. On a wall throw from maximum distance, you can get a charged top heavy for 44 damage. Now, if you get a guard break on an opponent when you're out of stamina, you can get a wall throw and get a top heavy. If you parry an opponent who is out of stamina, you could get a charged top heavy for 44 damage. And if you have the stamina for it, you can also get a light, heavy, light combo for 46 damage. If we look at the combo again, we can realize that the final light is blockable but not parryable by the opponent. So if you get a guard break on an out of stamina opponent, you could get a side throw into a top heavy, side heavy, and light for 66 damage. And now, when you hit the opponent when he's out of lock and out of stamina, you get certain punishes. For example, if you hit him with a top heavy, you can get a side heavy. If you hit the opponent with a light, you could get a chain bash into a light for 26 damage. And if you hit the opponent with a shield bash, you could get a side heavy for 25 damage. Now, you have to be careful when the opponent is out of lock but has stamina, you won't be able to get any of these punishes. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about Whiff Punishing with the Conqueror. So a lot of people don't like to include this in their guides, but I will because about a quarter of the damage that I deal when I play duels comes from punishing whiffs. A whiff is a miss, and Whiff Punishing simply means punishing an opponent when he misses an attack. You have 4 tools at your disposal as a Conqueror to do Whiff Punishing. You have your guard break, your light, your forward bash, and your heavy. And each of these 4 attacks are better in certain situations. So right now I'm going to talk about each individual situations and what Whiff Punish you could use for the specific situation. Now, if the opponent whiffs their guard break, you punish with a guard break of your own. The reason why this is the best option when punishing whiffed guard breaks is because if you watch closely, when the opponent whiffs his guard break, he misses and he goes towards me, allowing my guard break to hit him despite his guard break missing. In a lot of situations, you're going to have Orochis, for example, that have faster chain lights than their light openers. So they're going to whiff their light openers on purpose so that they can get access to their chain lights. If they ever try to do that, do a forward bash into a light to punish them. A lot of characters have super armor, so if you try to come towards them or attack them, they'll do their super armor moves to punish you for it. So if I try to punish the Highlander with a heavy, he eats 25 damage and I eat 45 damage. It's not a good trade, so if you ever have opponents with super armor, do a bash. The bash will interrupt their super armor no matter what, and you'll be able to get your light. If your opponent can dodge out of the recovery frames of his whiffed lights, you can do a light into a heavy. Now, when you do this, the opponent will dodge out of your light, and your heavy is really good against guard break, so he'll bounce right off. If the opponent can dodge out of the recovery of their lights and do a dodge attack, you do a heavy and you cancel it into a full block stance, and you get 30 damage. Now, if the opponent whiffs an attack but he's too far away from you, you punish them with a heavy because it has better range. So let's talk about Conqueror's offense. The first move that we're going to look at in this segment of the video is going to be his delayed lights and when he can actually do them. So when can he do them? He can do them after a light opener, after a chain light, and after a chained heavy. Now please note that he cannot delay them after a heavy opener. You cannot delay them. He could delay them after a flail uppercut from any direction, and if you do, they will never miss. Your delayed lights will never miss if you do it after a flail uppercut. You can also delay your chain bashes and your heavies, but that's just a side note, it's not really that useful. Now if you do your delayed lights from top to side, you're going to have more chances of missing your lights. What you do if you want to get them, if you do it from side to top, those have less chances of missing if you delay them from side to top. Now you can also delay them from top to side on purpose so they miss, and then when the opponent sees that you miss and tries to attack you, you could do a buffered light after. So first light, second missed light, and then a third buffered light to punish the opponent for trying to attack me. Now, we're going to talk about the Conqueror's bashes, but before we talk about his neutral bashes, which are really strong, we're going to talk about his chain bashes because they have surprisingly good recovery. So if you're fighting a character that does not have a dodge attack, like Centurion or Warlord, you could do your chain bashes and then do a heavy after they miss. So if they try to guard break you, you get the heavy. So if you do your chain bashes and then do a heavy, you'll get the heavy because your chain bashes have good recovery. Now, if you try to do the same thing but with a neutral bash, you won't be able to do it because the neutral bash has worse recovery than the chain bash. Now, let's talk about the Conqueror's neutral bash offense. If the opponent tries to dodge as soon as he sees movement, you go for a neutral guard break. If the opponent is stoic, you'd go for an insta-bash. The way you do an insta-bash is as soon as you dodge forward, you press your guard break button to bash as soon as possible. If the opponent does not even try to attack you or interrupt you, you could do a delayed bash. Simply dodge towards them, and right before your dodge ends, click on your guard break button to get the bash. Now, what if the opponent tries to dodge your delayed bash? Well, you just dodge towards them, and you hit him with a guard break. Okay, so let's talk about flickering with the Conqueror. A flicker means that you flash your unblockable indicator without actually doing a shield bash. And the way you do a flicker is, while you're charging, you swap your guard, you press on the guard break button right before your new guard becomes active, and then you swap your guard again. You'll know when you do this correctly, your guard is going to flicker white for a second. This is what the opponent sees. When you do it, it plays the sound cue for the bash, and it also shows the orange unblockable indicator. You can use this to bait a reaction out of your opponent. For example, if you do a flicker and you see that the opponent dodges, you can punish him for it with a forward bash into a light. Another way you can punish the opponent for dodging your flicker is with a cancel into a guard break. So if we look at that punish again, we could see that you have to do a flicker, then you cancel, and then you go into a guard break to get 25 damage. Now, if you try to do a flicker after a forward dodge, you're not going to see your guard flicker white. So you don't know if you get a flicker or not, but don't worry, it's kind of a bug, if you could say so. you're not going to see your guard indicator flashing, but the opponent is going to see the flicker. If we look at what the opponent sees, we could see that even if it doesn't flash for you, he sees the unblockable indicator and gets the sound cue even though your guard has never flashed. Now let's talk about chaining bashes. Bashes could be chained using the charging heavy. The way you do this is if you get your first bash, for example, you get the bash and right after it hits, you charge your heavy and you cancel your charge into another bash of your choice, whether it be a shield uppercut or a regular forward bash. The reason why we use this is to punish low stamina opponents like the Nobushi when they only have a few hits left before they go out of stamina. So let's see. You parry the heavy of the Nobushi, so she's already down to a low stamina. You do 2 bashes. You think she's gonna dodge, so you do a shield uppercut, and then you do your 4th bash, and she's already out of stamina. So it's a way to deplete the opponent's stamina. Now, let's use chain bashes and flicker together, combine them to create a mix-up. Now, a mix-up that I really like to do when I'm fighting the opponent is the double shield bash into a flicker canceled into a guard break. So I do 2 shield bashes, I do a flicker, and I cancel into a guard break for 25 damage. If we look at that footage again, the opponent gets hit by the first bash. He's expecting a light, so he's not going to dodge my shield bash. I do a flicker, and then he dodges, and I get my 25 damage heavy. Now, the final tech that I want to look at is kind of a gimmick, so that's why I included it last. But if you have an emote with an orange effect, you could do it quickly and then go for a guard break. The opponent will see the orange effect and he will dodge, and then you'll get your guard break. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about Conqueror's defense. And when we talk about his defense, we're going to be talking about his option selects. But before we do, I just need you to understand a few concepts first. When I say do something on light timing, I simply mean do it like you're expecting the opponent to throw out a light, even if he doesn't. For example, when I say dodge on light timing, I simply mean dodge as soon as you see the red indicator, even if the opponent ends up doing a heavy. When I'm going to be talking about the option selects, I'm going to be doing it like this. If the opponent does A or B or C, either one of these 3, you can punish him with X, for example. And also, before we start talking about his option selects, I'm going to tell you the difference between a soft feint and a hard feint with this example right now. A soft feint is when the opponent cancels an attack into another. For example, the Centurion can cancel his heavy into a guard break. That is a soft feint, and you can do soft feints into other side attacks and into bashes. A hard feint is when the opponent has to do an attack, feint it, and then do his next attack. For example, the Centurion has to feint his heavy and then go for his guard break. A soft feint is always going to be faster than a hard feint. Now let's talk about his option selects. If the opponent does a light or a hard feint into a guard break or a soft feint into a guard break, you can punish him with a raw heavy. If we look at what happens when the opponent does a light, you get the parry. And if the opponent gets the hard feint into GB or soft feint GB, you also punish them for a heavy. The Centurion tries to soft feint into a guard break, but he bounces right off and I get my heavy for 25 damage. If the opponent tries to do a light or hard feint GB or soft feint GB, you can also do a heavy into a shield uppercut. If the Centurion tries to hard feint into a guard break, we could see that the shield uppercut gets him. Now, if the opponent tries to crushing counter you or option select you with a blockable attack, you could do your heavy into a full block. You could see that the Warden crushing counter gets countered, and the Warden option select gets countered also. Now, if you have an opponent who hard feints or soft feints a heavy into another side attack, like the Berserker, you could do a charge on light timing, and then immediately go into your full block to counter them. If the opponent does a light or a soft feint GB or a hard feint GB, or he decides to release his heavy, you could charge on light timing and release your charge on heavy timing. charge on light timing, and release the charge right before the heavy of the opponent hits you so that you could get your superior block and counter him. If the opponent decides to hard feint or soft feint into a guard break, he'll bounce right off and you'll get your heavy. If you have an opponent who does a light or a heavy hard feint into a guard break or a heavy hard feint into nothing, you could do the charge on light timing and cancel your charge as soon as possible. If he decides to let his heavy go, you're going to only eat the chip damage. And if he decides to hard feint into nothing or a guard break, you're going to be able to counter the guard break and he's not going to be able to get a punish on you. This is the safest option. If the opponent decides to do a soft feint into a bash, like the Kensei, you could charge on light timing and then you can cancel your charge with a dodge to counter them. If the opponent decides to release his heavy or soft feint the heavy into another side attack, you can also use this technique to dodge out of the way of their attacks and get your bash. If the opponent does a light or a heavy, you can dodge both of them in the same timing by using the dodge's 100 millisecond superior block property. The superior block of Conqueror's dodges activate 100 millisecond into the dodge, and if the opponent does a light, this means that you could dodge as soon as you see the red indicator, and if he does a light, you're going to be able to counter him with a deflect into a bash. If he does a heavy and you dodge as soon as you see the red indicator, you're also going to be able to punish the opponent. If he decides to feint his heavy into a guard break, you can get the dodge into a shield bash to punish them. Now let's talk about Conqueror's best option select, the zone attack. You could option select people with the zone attack and parry them if you guess right. If the opponent decides to do a heavy and release it and you do your zone attack on light timing, the zone attack will hit them and the attack will bounce right off of you. If the opponent decides to hard feint or soft feint his attack into a bash or into another side attack or into a GB, the zone attack will counter all of those options. The only counter to the zone attack is when the opponent feints into nothing to parry you. You can also run away, and as soon as you see the indicator flashing because the opponent's trying to punish you for running, you could get your zone attack to punish them. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the Highlander matchup when you're playing Conqueror. This is a very bad matchup for you because the Highlander can do a lot more damage than you, and he basically kills you if you go out of stamina against him. We're going to talk about the different ways that you could deal with his most powerful tools so that you don't give him a free win if the opponent, if you have the bad luck of having an opponent who chooses the Highlander. If the Highlander does a backwards light, you punish with a forward bash into a light. He's not going to be able to go into offensive stance fast enough to dodge your bash, and if he decides to do a super armor heavy, your bash is going to go right through it. Now, another thing that you can do against the Highlander is dodge roll. If you dodge and then unlock, you'll be able to dodge roll out of the kick and the caber toss as well. Now, if you predict a kick from the Highlander, you could get 2 dodges. So you predict a kick, you get your first dodge, you dodge the kick, and you can get a second dodge to dodge the caber toss. You have to dodge as soon as the Highlander does his kick. Now, what you can also do against the kick to grab mix-up is, against the kick, you could do a backwards top light. You will be able to go backwards and go away from the kick, and you're also going to be able to hit the Highlander. So his kick will miss, but your light will hit him. You have to do it in the middle of the startup frames of the Highlander's kick. So you do it, the Highlander misses, and you get your backwards top light. And it has to be a backwards top light and not just a regular top light. Now, you can also dodge the caber toss to kick mix-up with this technique. However, if you do it too late or you're too far, you get caught by the caber toss. And if you do it again too late, you get caught by the kick. So don't do it when you're too far, and don't do it when it's too late. Now, if the Highlander dodges some of your attacks and then goes into a kick, you can dodge out of his kick and punish him with a shield bash of your own. For example, the Highlander dodges my zone, goes into a kick. I can dodge that kick and go into a shield bash punish. This recovery dodge can be done with attacks like the shield bash. The Highlander dodges my shield bash, goes into a kick, I dodge out of his kick, and I get a shield bash of my own. You can also do this with light attacks, but you have to be careful. If you only do one light attack, for example, and the Highlander is going to be able to dodge and kick, and you won't be able to recover out of your lights. The trick with light attack recoveries is to do a variable number of lights, sometimes 1, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 lights. If the Highlander has to dodge and then check if you do any more lights and then he does his kick, you're going to be able to dodge out of that kick and go into your shield bash dodge punish. If the Highlander dodges your attack and then cancels his kick into a caber toss because he knows you're going to dodge out of it, you can wait for the caber toss and then dodge that and go into a guard break for 25 damage. You can also use the roll dodge option select. For example, I miss my bash, Highlander goes into a kick, but he goes into a caber toss, I can just dodge roll. Okay, so now it's the end of the video. I just want to say if you like content like this, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. And watch some of my other videos. I have other guides that I post on this channel, and I also post tournaments and gameplay. And yeah, thanks for watching.